Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the March 23, 2023 Des Moines MPO Policy Committee meeting. Thanks for taking the time to have the special meeting. We do have some things that couldn't wait until the April meeting, so I appreciate everybody taking time to have this back. First, I'll ask for motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion for Lynn, is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, and that's mine.
Any abstentions? Motion carries. And then for motion to approve the minutes from the February 16 meeting. Who moved that? Sorry.
Is that Marquita?
No, but I will.
We'll attribute it to you, Marquita. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Ruth. All, any discussions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions, motion carries. Now's the time for public comment on any MPO actions. Is there anybody that had signed up to speak?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Item 5 is a report and vote on the priority project list for the Greater Des Moines Partnership DC trip. Got it?
Afternoon, everyone. We've been working to put together the annual DC list, as we call it. We did ask all the member governments to submit those projects to us, and we've been receiving those. Our deadline was stated as March 17th. We did send out a draft to you as part of this packet. I'll note that we did receive one additional project between the time we sent that to you. So there's one additional project. And then with the policy committee, or excuse me, we send this on to the Greater Des Moines Partnership, and they would then incorporate it into their own policy book for the DC trip. So I'm not going to ask you to try to read this here, but this is the overall DC list. I have broken it down into a few different categories. The first are community funding project requests. These ones known to us, shared with us, and we have only included ones on here that are transportation related. We've also made aware of some others that are not transportation related, but that is what is reflected here. There are also several other outstanding funding requests. A lot of these are going to be very familiar to you. DART Airport, the big interchange project out of Hickman, and then also 4 different raised grant applications. Lastly, policy initiatives, which times here is one of those, and then also
For those online, there's somebody that's not muted. We're getting some background noise. Please mute. I got it.
thank you. Couple policy issues, one being the Future 435, which we talked to you about numerous times. Another one is the identification of interest in pursuing another East Polk County interchange on 80. That's it from me. Otherwise, happy to answer your questions.
All right, thank you, Gunnar. Any questions for Gunnar on the list?
What was added?
Sorry. The Polk City Trail connection.
Okay.
I
Scott,
would-
yes. Wait a minute, before we get, I'll let you online. Scott had a question here. Scott raised his hand here first. I'll get right back to Scott.
Thank you. On the Northeast 23rd Street Des Moines project with Easton, I don't want to speak for the county, but I think they'd probably like to be included as a joint project, Easton,
And notice one here.
because they've already got monies in the part of that project, it's their project.
So we got Zoo students.
And then just, if I could generally suggest maybe that in the next cycle, we talk about whether we want to actually prioritize some of these that are going to be going out to DC, because I do worry about 4 different applications for raised grant that will be competing against each other. And I don't know what the other communities are going to say about the importance of their, and maybe this body decides they don't want to weigh back into that. That's the way we used to have to work it. I think a few of us recall that those days. my suggestion would be that we probably do need to go back to that, so we can at least all understand, yeah, we're the number 2 priority right now. Until we get that first one done, type of thing. So,
Yeah, we recall the Latham days where he asked me the region to there. Yeah, we're happy to facilitate that conversation as staff. We can bring that back next cycle. I think, this year's was kind of a little bit atypical process, given all the unknowns with the election and then whether or not the community funding programs would continue. But happy to bring that back.
Yep. Good point, Scotty, and yes, that's the way we do things, I remember that, and so we'll have to, as we get back into it, probably need to do that, but probably also have to have that discussion all ahead. So,
I can full county on that.
is there someone online who want to make a comment?
I was just going to, if appropriate, I was going to move approval of the slate of projects.
Okay. All right, well, there's a motion, is there a second?
Mario second.
Okay, motion and a second, any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Any abstentions? That carries. All right, thank you. Thanks, Governor. Item 6 is a report and vote on the fiscal year 23-26 TIP amendment. Zach.
Thank you. This is related to the item that Gunnar just presented on. We have a couple of projects on that community funded projects list that currently aren't in the TIP. And so we felt that it was important to go ahead and update the TIP to include those projects. One of the criteria for those community funded projects is whether or not they're in the TIP. So we're proposing to add 2 projects into the TIP, and I've got those projects on the next slide here. The first one is for Bondurant for their 10th Street Southwest Bridge Replacement Project. This was included on that list that Gunnar just presented. A total project cost of $17.9 million. The second one is from the city of Des Moines for their Northeast 23rd Easton Boulevard reconstruction. Scott mentioned this project as well. It is currently in the TIP under a Polk County project. However, the project extents are different. And in speaking to Polk County, they thought it would be good to include this project as a city of Des Moines project with those extended project limits. So both of these are being proposed to be added into the TIP. They don't have any effect on any of the MPO, STBG funding or anything of that nature. They're just being added in as illustrative projects so that they are in there and have a project number in case any of these projects move on in the community funded projects and are awarded funding under that. So this is before you for your approval, but I'd be happy to address any questions that you have.
Honestly, there's a piece of that, but I don't know that it matters. Appreciate it though. Yes, it does. And I don't know if that brings additional weight to that or not. Because the obviously Northeast 23rd piece is a Des Moines, Pleasant Hill, Polk County ordeal. Is there an advantage to having us listed as well or not? I don't know that it matters to us ego wise, if you will.
Okay.
For the application, it would probably help. I don't know for the tip, it's gonna matter, but. We'd have to check on what
Go back to.
went in with the application.
Okay. All right, any further discussion on that?
Altoona move to approve.
Bondurant second.
Is there a motion a second? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Abstentions, motion carries. Item 7 is report and vote on the Water Trails Build Grant payment approvals.
Get off mute here. Thank you. We received payment application number 3 from Snyder Associates a week and a half or so ago. It's for a rather large amount, and so the contractor spending a lot on materials right now. We wanted to get this payment done, so they didn't have a large balance outstanding. The payment includes about 75% of the clearing and grubbing that's been completed on the project, but it also pays for access and staging as part of the contract. 1% of the total contract amount was payable once they started work. And I have Gabe Nelson on the call as well from Snyder and Associates, and he can answer any particular questions you might have on that We included the pay estimate in the packet as well. We would recommend approval of pay estimate number 3, but happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Just
Altoona move to approve.
all right. Is there a second?
Second, Adam.
All right, motion and a second, but just before we take the vote, I just want to make clear to everybody. Todd, can you just outline the review process for this so far?
Sure. Yeah.
So we're on that.
Certainly. The contractor, prepares the invoice and submits that to Gabe at Snyder and Associates. They review it and compare it to the work that's been completed on the project, as well as any invoices they receive about materials and things of that nature. They concur or don't with the pay estimate. If they don't, they send it back to the contractor and they figure that out. Once they've done reviewing it, it goes to Polk County, to Bob Rice's department at Polk County. They review it and they concur. And once both of them have concurred that they agree with the pay estimate, it's forwarded to me for review. And then once we take a look at it, we bring it before the board for approval and payment.
All right. So I want to make sure people were clear on what's happened so far, because I had that same question for Todd before we got here, so. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Any abstention? That motion carries. And then just for, again, that was the primary reason for the special meeting today, because we didn't have a regular March meeting. We obviously put a few other things on here, but that was the primary purpose. And in moving forward, this will only come up in months where we don't have a regular policy committee meeting. So we may have, Todd and I have talked about this, we may have a policy to put in place for you for a future meeting that in months where the policy committee doesn't meet, that executive committee could approve their request if necessary, but we don't have to call special meetings. With that, then we will move on. And to item 8 is a report on EPA climate pollution reduction grant opportunity. Allison.
Thank you. So we just wanted to bring this to you all today for a discussion. So on March 1st, the EPA put out a climate pollution reduction grants program. And this is providing up to $3 million for each state and $1 million for the top 67 most populous US MSAs to pretty much create climate action plans that to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. The phase 2 of this would be about $6 billion in implementation. So each state is asked to tell the EPA by March 31st whether or not they're going to accept these funds. There is no big application process, but as it stands right now, it's not clear, or it's Iowa's indicating that it's not going to accept these funds. And so if Iowa declines these funds, then $3 million for the state would then be split up between the 3 most populous MSAs in the state, Des Moines being one of them, Cedar Rapids and Davenport being the others, which would align $1 million to each of those, which is in line with the allocations for the other MSAs. So being that they are MSAs and pretty big, the program is calling for one lead agency to be the grant recipient. And so we looked into it and kind of poked around, and NPOs are an eligible agency. And at this point, we don't have any other agencies in the region looking at this. We wanted to bring it to you and see how we should proceed. So just an idea. So it is for the MSA, right? So the MSA is larger than the MPO boundaries. And so if the MPO were to do it, we would obviously make good faith request of Guthrie and the other counties that aren't necessarily in our planning area to become part of the group. If they decline, the EPA has said that's fine, as long as you made that gesture to invite them into the process, continue on. So that would be one of the first steps that we would do if we took this on, is say, who all wants to come along on this before we start out. So some of the things that they really want to focus on, their priorities. One is understanding our greenhouse gas emissions and what the current and future and what it looks like, and actually interpreting these things. Prioritizing actions would be another piece. And that's one of the big pieces of one of the major steps too. But really they want to accelerate the reduction of greenhouse gases and decarbonization. And they have a number of different important sectors, of which transportation is one. that you can work within. And of course, they ask us to closely align with other cities, develop a coordinated plan, which the MPO typically does. And then look at leveraging our funding and financing resources that are out there through the multiple bills, the kind of the cash cube that we're all sitting in right now, and see how we can use those to the best of our ability throughout the whole metro. Obviously, innovative technologies and practices. They want to make sure that these things are durable, replicable, and provide certainty. So some things might be a pilot, but they want us to start tracking these things and see how programs might change the needle a little bit. And so also, because the Biden administration put out the Justice 40, they also are really focused on addressing environmental injustices in those disadvantaged communities. So just to kind of give you an idea of why we think maybe the MPO might be a good spot with this. So on the left is the 10-year timeline of greenhouse gas emissions of the city of Des Moines. You can see that Mid-American is going down, right? Natural gas kind of rises a little bit, but our energy consumption continues to lessen as we go forward. But the transportation bars are staying right about the same thing. And so when we did the greenhouse gas inventory for the whole metro, greenhouse transportation came in at second, just underneath commercial energy, with more than 26% of the greenhouse gas emissions in the metro coming from our transportation sector. So on the right, you'll see kind of the matrix of what the three phases would be. But we would be required in phase one of this planning grant to do three things. So one is a priority climate action plan, and that's really kind of a quick sheet. So you do a greenhouse gas inventory, you look and do some benefits analysis, and you really kind of hone in on some of your disadvantaged communities, and then set a priority area for the region to start moving on before the whole 2-year planning process comes afterwards. So that 2-year planning process is a comprehensive climate action plan in the middle, where you see everything except the bottom is required. And so that is a 2-year process where, you know, really the bulk of this money would be spent. We would assume that if the MPO took this on, you know, during those priority climate action planning process, we have the greenhouse gas inventories. We would need to run them for any jurisdictions outside the MPO that would come in and be a part of this plan. But a lot of the other pieces, we really don't see much of that $1 million being needed there. It really would be in that comprehensive plan, especially since there's multiple different analysis that we might not either have the capacity to do or the technology to do. But then the third thing is a status report. So after the 2 years of that plan, the status report is making sure that that plan is moving forward. And so all three of these things are required to be eligible for the phase 2 implementation grant, which is a competitive program. And that's again about $6 billion. So the eligible activities is very long, right? So things that could be paid for out of this $1 million, anything from staffing, our meetings and workshops, outreach, which would be a very large piece of this. You know, there could be sub-awards to each of the communities to do their own outreach or their own studies as well. We could work with other consultants and nonprofit agencies. Obviously modeling, we do some modeling here, but we would be kind of upgrading how we do our modeling, and it would likely take some staff time and maybe even some materials and so on and so forth, training capacity, things like that. We would expect the Green Iowa AmeriCorps, the $10,000 a year, if we continued on with that in the future, would be able to be paid out of this pot. The same thing goes for our ICLEI membership, which is about $3,800 a year as well. So I believe, so that's why I'm here standing in front of you. We want to know, we're just really seeking some direction here. We expect the state to decline next Friday. And so then we will be asked as the metropolitan area, are you going to accept? And so if we're not going to accept as an entity, then working with other entities to kind of align them, but we wanted to bring it to you to see what you guys would like us to do. Obviously, no action would be taken today. This is mostly advisory for getting some thoughts going. You can ask me questions. I might not know all the answers because this is all we really have on it so far, but I do have contacts with the EPA and other organizations that we can send those questions, those kind of detailed questions to. But if we were to move forward as the MPO on this, we would need to submit a letter of intent to participate, which is a very basic letter, by April 28th, and then a full application by May 31st, and then the EPA awards would come out in summer of 2023, and then we would make our budget and work plan amendments from there. I believe that's all I have for you. So it's a lot of information. We wanted you to at least start pondering on it. I'd be happy to take any questions you might have at this time about it. And if I don't have the answers, then I'll go out and find them for you as well and report back in April.
Allison, can you check the chat on the computer? I think Luis Montoya had asked a question on chat, but I saw it come through, but I couldn't read it.
It's about
There is-
local match.
Yep, and there is no local match. This is $1 million.
And then, sorry, just to follow up, just to clarify, the 6 billion in implementation awards. Could a so I know some communities have already developed their own climate action plans. Would that make them eligible? Or is there different requirements that you need to go through their process in order to be eligible?
Yeah, so the guidance does ask that if the entity does have a climate action plan, that they do update it with these metrics. And so they might not have done some of the analysis that this process is asking for. So they are asking, yes, please update your plan with these dollars and then move into that implementation. So there are many, many cities, not even in Iowa, that likely are going to give it a brief, not take the whole 2 years, just give it a brief refresh and then start going after those implementation dollars. But as far as right now, yeah.
How many communities even have a climate action plan?
In the state of Iowa, or
Metro, this.
you guys are the first one.
We're working on one.
Yeah, and so I know that a lot of there are a handful of communities that are thinking about doing this, and so if they wanted to move forward collectively, use these dollars, use a consultant to meet with each community. I know we have our long range transportation planning process coming up, so we could even build into that some of the growth scenario. A lot of that kind of be interweaves, but as far as right now, Des Moines is the only one in the process. Others are thinking about it heavily.
So if the MPO does this as the MPO, then member communities can use that plan for the implementation of it.
And I would imagine, just seeing how we are, that similar to the greenhouse gas inventory, where there are some regional overarching goals, and then there's individual pieces for the city, so then they can extrapolate something out and take it and say, this is the implementation that we want to do. Or there are things, because if they want things to be coordinated across jurisdictions, there's things that we could apply to collectively as well. So kind of like that report that I put out, there's the overarching and then this individual pieces. That's how I would see this coming out.
Do you have a comment, Lynn?
Yeah, so I understand there's some ancillary pieces to this. We really need to maintain the transportation piece as the primary focus, I think, to keep it within the MPO. And then I would be more supportive, if you will. And then the other question I would have as time goes on is what staff capacity to be able to take this on with existing staff. If that becomes reached, then that also brings another piece of discussion on paying for someone else.
Yeah, I would say Dylan and I kind of talked about this earlier. We don't anticipate bringing on new staff, so we already have, we're bringing on the Green Iowa AmeriCorps, so that's quite a few bodies that'll be helping me. I would say that, we might bring on consultants and things like that, but we don't.
I understand some consultant.
Yeah, we don't see anybody, being brought on full-time this time. It would be.
Scott?
A couple qualifying questions. Do we know why the state's rejecting or not applying?
This is being recorded, so, no, not officially.
Okay, well, can ask later. And I assume Council Bluffs is not included because Nebraska.
Napa is one of the, so the Napa region is part of the 67 most populous. So they automatically get $1 million through that original allocation, so they're doing $1 million for 67 of the largest.
Which we're not.
We're not. We're I think
80 something.
83, I think.
Yeah, so if any of the MSAs decline, so right now it would come to Des Moines, West Des Moines, Dubuque, Davenport and Cedar Rapids. If any of those MSAs decline, then it would go down the list again. So then you get into Iowa City would be next, and I think we saw Cedar Falls was the next on the list after that.
That's fine. And then it's an interesting opportunity because I would be supportive of this effort Well, we're already being preempted on some of these very items that we're trying to get done locally by the state. Especially in the commercial buildings area, which is the number one issue if you want to go after Jews. Gas is,
That's why, yeah, I'll just say
So-
that, that's why I kind of focused on transportation, because that's not a
Yeah.
fight that I'm really interested in getting into.
that's where I was headed to back up what Lynn was saying. I think I might be able to muster some interest in Des Moines if we're focused only on transportation.
Yeah,
So the initial one would have a priority, but once you get into that second phase, it would go further out than just transportation, but that first, the priority climate action plan, yeah, transportation would be the focus of it. But once you get into the larger comprehensive one, then you really kind of you have to go outside that silo and really would be connecting silos.
But that would be for a plan, not necessarily implementation.
It would be for the plan, which would then allow for implementation grant dollars.
Right, but we could go after implementation dollars that are transportation only.
True.
That's
I'm not sure, so I can ask EPA, so I could ask EPA staff, say, all right, we are an MPO, we're a transportation organization. If we create a priority of transportation, can that priority be the priority as we get into the comprehensive?
That's what,
Okay, so let me.
realizing that we might have obstacles for the state if we go into anything else.
I'm all over that. Yeah, I didn't find out. I have a feeling they're gonna say, once you get into that comprehensive one, you need to go into those other pieces. But I'll reach out to them and I'll be able to report back in April.
But we can also make that decision at that time.
Correct. This is just a report only now, just.
Yeah, this is just kind of give you notice. This came out. I'm kind of going through, we've been listening to what's going on at the state. They're signaling that they're not gonna do it, so, you know, we just want to get our ducks in a row before it comes.
We didn't want to put you on the spot, it'd be.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Like, just, you know,
Give you a little time to do. Any other questions you'd like me to get answered for April? Or any other questions you might have for me today? Okay,
All right,
I will be back with more information.
all right. Thank you, Allison. Then you have a report on upcoming events.
I sure do. Now I have to get it back quick here. Okay, so I'll keep it brief just because this is a special meeting. So just a couple weeks ago, I put out another electric vehicle metro planning briefing to the folks that are working on those workshops. And so I focused your events on that. And one of the things I wanted to bring to people's attention is that the FHWA is doing a two-part webinar series on state DOT carbon reduction strategies. Iowa is developing their carbon reduction strategy right now. I was able to provide feedback in February. They are taking that feedback and Iowa should have another draft to us in June. But this might give people an idea of what other states are doing and how carbon reduction strategies, as these dollars come into the state and then directly to the MPO, might affect these things, which again, I think that, you know, a lot of these things could play into that same process that I was talking about before. But also so electrified cities, federal funding is flying. There is a reporting, there's a link in the packet on how cities can start accessing some of these federal dollars. And of course, we still have the reporting of the EVs in emergency management up on our website as well. So that's all I have for you, unless you have any questions.
Great. Thanks, Allison. Any questions on that? All right, anything else for the go of the order today? All right, the next meeting is April 24th. We stand, Todd, do you have something further? I'm sorry.
No,
No, this is Andy. This is Andy with DOT. I just wanted to say that we're having a Iowa DOT Commission public input meeting on April 11th in Grinnell. And I didn't know if you guys might be interested. I know we were just in the fall in Des Moines, but kind of an opportunity. We'll be taking the commission on a tour the day before, kind of staying away from the metro since we were just there because they have priorities that they want to check out on the more rural part of our district. But we will be getting over close to the metro, so it's something that you guys can think about.
All right, thanks, Andy.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Andy.
you're welcome.
Anything else for the go of the order? All right, next meeting is April 20th. We stand adjourned. Thanks, everybody.